So today we are trying something different, and we're coming into the holidays. Welcome to my kitchen, by the way. We're coming into the holidays, and those of us that live alone have to come up with ways to make the holidays special, even though we're by ourselves. And so today I am going to be making something called chestnut cream cake with hazelnut praline. And I have to share with you, I've never made this before. And I actually got this recipe from my French country home, which is Sharon Santoni's website. I subscribe to her magazine. I'll show you it at the very end. But that's where this recipe came from. So let's give it a shot. And the reason I'm making it is twofold. Number one, when you're in Paris, chestnut season is now. It is basically a very important part of desserts. You will see them in all kinds of boulangeries and patisseries and that sort of thing. And so I thought, how perfect, because on Saturday, I am actually tomorrow, I am having my good friend over, Lisa, who has a home in Boston. She also has a home in Paris. And so she and I would get together on a regular basis in Paris. And now, I thought, gosh, come on over to my home in Boston and we will pretend we're in Paris. So let's get started. So the first thing is, it says start by making the praline. And place the sugar, and the sugar is one cup of granulated sugar and enough water to just kind of moisten the sugar. And hopefully I didn't put too much in here. But what we're doing is we're actually melting the sugar until it tells us to try to get it to 116 degrees Celsius or 240 degrees Fahrenheit. And we will see if I have a thermometer. I don't know that I do, honestly. Oh gosh, this might be a meat thermometer, but we'll see. We'll see if it will actually read the temperature. So because the reason it's telling you to take it to a particular temperature is so that it forms basically a simple syrup. Once it forms a simple syrup, I can talk, we are going to add hazelnuts. And because we are making a hazelnut praline that is going to go on top of the chestnut cream cake. How wonderful does that sound? And some of you may wonder, what in the world do you have on, Sharri? This is, I don't know if you can see, but this is my apron from one of Patricia Wells' cooking classes, which I took a couple of them. I took one actually in Paris. Rue de Bac is where Patricia Wells' home is, and so her Paris cooking class was on Rue de Bac, which was very close to my apartment, and then she has her Provence home. So anyways, let's see what this is all about. Okay, it's pretty much to boiling. That's what it took for me to get this to basically 240 degrees Fahrenheit. Then it says add the hazelnuts, and these are whole hazelnuts. I did not take the skins off, just so you know. I'm going to pour the hazelnuts in, and it says stir until the mixture begins to harden. Interesting. I don't know if you can see, but there's the hazelnuts in the sugar, which is really interesting. I'm going to try to turn the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. Well, that was almost a catastrophe because I walked over to the sink and forgot that I was connected to the microphone. Okay, so now I'm going to, tells us to pour it out on a cookie sheet. And then as it begins to cool, separate the nuts. Feels like we're making candy, doesn't it? Well, I guess that's what praline actually is. So I'm going to separate this out as this cools. You want to get all this deliciousness, right? Wonderful. Okay, let's go back to the recipe. It says pour the rest of the cooled nuts once, so it says reserve a few of the nuts after this cools. Reserve a few whole nuts for the garnish and then pour the rest of the cooled nuts into a food processor. We'll try it. Okay, now we are actually going to make the cake, and it says melt the chocolate, and it's about 2/3 of a cup of dark chocolate. And I used Ghirardelli. I don't know if this is the right one to use because it's it's bittersweet. So it might be a little bit too bitter, but we'll see. So it says to melt the chocolate and the butter. And the butter is 6.5 tablespoons of butter. So all of this together in this yumminess. Gotta love it, right? Okay, let's melt that away. And you can see that the hazelnut has now cooled. I've got a few of the little ones over here on the side that are going to go on the top of the cake. And the rest I'm going to, while this is melting, I'm going to put the rest into a food processor. And it says grind it up for about 10 minutes, actually, believe it or not. It says blend for about 10 minutes until a thick paste forms. Set aside while you make the cake. So I'm going to try that. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I have a very small food processor, as you can see, and it's not turning into a paste. So what I had to do is actually take half of it out, see if I can turn this into a paste, but this is going to go on top of the cake. And so consequently, this is why I'm not a really great baker. I look at it and say, if it's not perfect, it's not perfect. Who cares? So I'm going to hold off on that. And now I'm going to make the cake. And let's see what it says. It says melt the chocolate and butter together over low heat. And let's make sure I'm not getting too high until smooth, which it pretty much is. And then you have to stir in the chestnut cream. Chestnut cream is something that is common in France. It looks like this. This one says chestnut spread. You need 500 grams, which is this entire jar, but you need chestnut cream that has sugar added. Otherwise, this is not going to be sweet enough. So I'm going to put all of this chestnut cream in. You can now, believe it or not, order so many of the products that are certainly French products, but I'm sure it's true of other countries also, online, which is great. You know, I can't speak to what it costs to get it into the country and all of that. I actually brought this from Paris last time I was there. And yeah, but I think it's so wonderful that we can now get products that we used to have to hide in our suitcases, right? So I remember years where I would bring butter back to the United States because I absolutely love French butter. Okay, so I've got the chestnut cream in, and I think I'm going to turn this off. It doesn't say to turn it off, but I think I'm going to turn it off. And then what I need to add, slowly add in, are some beaten eggs. And 3 actually. So I'm just going to whip them up one more time. You can see what I got going on here. And I'm going to slowly add some of these beaten eggs into this mixture. That might have been too fast. Again, this is why I'm not a baker. Baking is perfection. Cooking is like kind of like an art form. To me, it's like portrait art versus modern art or contemporary art or abstract art, where you can do a little dab here and a little dab there. Whereas portrait art, it's got to look like the person, right? So baking to me is like portrait art. And me, not so good at that. And so consequently, I tend to make very simple baking things. So I'm mashing this all up into, I beat the eggs, and I'm now putting the eggs in to the chestnut, chocolate, all of that. The oven is preheated, so to 350 degrees if you're in the US, 180 degrees Celsius if you're elsewhere, or use a different system. I don't know what this is going to taste like. We'll find out, right? We'll see what Lisa has to say on Saturday, whether she thinks this is good chocolate cake, reminiscent of Paris, or Sharri's mistake. Okay. The oven is almost there, so I am going to pour this into my greased and floured cake pan. Let's see how this works. Wow. My pan is so heavy. Did you ever get like that, where you're like, why did I buy this? It's so heavy I can hardly lift it. I don't know. I tasted the batter, and I have to be honest, it was just kind of so-so. So we'll see what it's like. Another taste. It might be that the chocolate, remember I said the chocolate might be too bitter, and that actually might be the case. Cooking is like designing your next chapter. Sometimes it works when you try something on, and sometimes it doesn't. And you have to be okay with that and say, how can I adjust? How can I pivot? How can I change this? We are at 330. When it gets to 350, I'm going to put it in. Okay, we are ready to roll. I actually changed pans, just so you know, because I was afraid that my traditional cake pan would actually leak all over my oven. So here we go. Yikes. Let's hope this works. And it goes in the oven for 35 minutes. Okay, well, here it is. This is the paste that's on the top that I made rather, how do we say, improv. I used improv because I actually whipped it up in the mixer, not the food processor. So I don't know what to think, actually. And for those of you who do not know this, French desserts have significantly less sugar than any American dessert. And so consequently, maybe that's what this is all about, is me getting used to less sugar. And so we'll see. I'll let you know tomorrow what Lisa thinks of it, my true French friend, and we'll go from there. But how does this relate to, designing a fabulous next chapter? Well, first of all, just as an example, I'm cooking, and I love to cook. So in our next chapters, we need to figure out a way to do the things that we love to do, no matter what. I live alone, and so consequently, most of the time what I'm cooking makes no sense whatsoever. The other night I made chicken marbelle. I think it's called marbelle, with the olives and the prunes and all of that, because I like to cook, period. Sometimes even if it's just for myself. If I can have somebody over, it's even better. It's spectacular. And then, of course, when I go to Minnesota, I cook for my grandkids who love grandma's cooking. So it's all beautiful. But this relates because we have to do what it is that we love to do. We have to keep doing it, not stop just because we think, oh gosh, I can't do that, or my kitchen isn't big enough. I have had homes where my kitchen was the equivalent of the stove and the counter next to it. That was it. And I actually had like a little storage unit down the hall where I had my mixer and all of these sorts of things. And so all those tools that require space. And so when I was going to cook, I'd wheel a cart. I bought a little cart with wheels down the hall with all of my kitchen items on it. So don't stop. Don't limit yourself by what your life is like, what your home environment is like. Figure out how can you keep doing the things that you love to do. Also, how does this relate? Well, this may be awful. I've never made it before. It might be terrible. And that's something I think that is very much not talked about when we talk about our next chapters, in that sometimes the things that we think we want to do, when we actually try them, we don't like them. We don't want to do them long term. And be willing to pivot. Be willing to say, this is kind of pretty, but it doesn't taste that good. And move on to whatever your next idea is. There's a chapter in my book where I talk about trying on things. And think of it like trying on clothes. You might go into J. Jill or Eileen Fisher or Macy's or whatever, and you carry a whole bunch of clothes into the dressing room, and maybe one or two items in that whole pile actually work. That's exactly the same with our next chapters. What is it you want to do? What is it you think you want to do? And you have to try it on to be sure that that actually is what you want to do, and that it provides you what it is that you want. I'm listening to a YouTube teacher, Sean Cannell, and he talks about passion. There's like 3 P's: passion, profit, and proficiency. Those are the 3 P's. So, sometimes what we're passionate about is only going to be a hobby. Do you need profit? What does profit mean to you? And then proficiency, sometimes you might be really good at something that you don't ever want to do again. You did it in your job, and you never want to do it again. So the sweet spot is where all 3 of those P's come together. So this relates anytime you try something new, whether it's a new dessert or a new dish or an idea of a video that you want to create, or maybe you want to create a YouTube channel or a blog or write a book, or I don't know, start a knitting circle or something of that sort, or something through your church or your synagogue. Go for it. You have to try it on in order to know if it's a good fit. And if it's not, then start to ask the questions, what could I do differently? What could I create that maybe I haven't thought of at this point? Because you know that old saying, when one door closes, another opens? I think that is totally true. Whether you're cooking a chestnut cream cake or you're trying on something for your next chapter. So thank you everyone for joining me today, and we shall see you soon. A biento. Hello everyone. I just wanted to close out this video to let you know I had my tea. I should have filmed what I put on the tea table. It was so pretty. I had cremeux cheese with these really cool crackers. I had I had tangerine slices. I had some salami. I had olives and some nuts. It was great. But the cake, right? We just made the cake. The cake was delicious. My friend absolutely loved the cake. And I wanted you all to know that this is the magazine the cake came out of, My French Country Home, which is put out by Sharon DeSantoni's group. This is the actual title of her website. Sharon also does fabulous tours, just so you know. And the only thing I will say is that my cake didn't look like that. And my cake, the topping, as you know from the video, I struggled a bit with the topping because I couldn't, no matter how long I turned it on in the food processor, it just kept chunking up. It didn't turn into a paste. Now this looks a little runny, so I find that really interesting. But anyways, regardless of what it looked like, my friend thought it was delicious. She thought it was this wonderful combination of a chestnut taste with the hazelnut praline on the top, which was sweet. The bottom was not sweet, as you well know from the recipe, and I will put the recipe down in the show notes or in the more section below, but I wanted you to know. But My French Country Home, this is the November-December issue, and what is so cool is it's just one chestnut thing after another, like she called it here at the beginning. Chestnut crush. Sharon is a Brit who married a Frenchman and has lived in France for most of her adult life. But it's like creamy chestnut soup and then chestnut and pumpkin quiche. How spectacular is that? Oh, that just sounds delicious. So anyways, I had to give you an update on, I have no makeup on, I so apologize. It is Sunday morning after my tea, and just went out for a walk and came back and thought, oh, I gotta add a little bit to that video. I have never done a cooking video before, so please excuse the video. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the proper equipment to videotape inside the bowls. So if you like this video, let me know that you liked it, and I will make sure I get the proper equipment. What else? Oh, nothing, I guess. It's November. I love November. November's like the precursor to the craziness of the holidays. So in November, we don't think at all about, oh my God, it's going to be nuts. We're not in the middle of the craziness yet. But we are anticipating. And I think the anticipation is what makes November so incredibly special. So we're thinking about how are we going to decorate the house? You know, what are we going to cook? In the US, there's Thanksgiving. You know, what are we going to make for that? How are we going to get together? And there's a connection, whether you celebrate solo or you celebrate with a big family or a small family, whatever it might be. November is kind of a cool time period. And as I said in a little short, November, always the week before Thanksgiving, I meet a college friend of mine, a sorority sister of mine, if you can believe it. We've known each other since we were young women. I meet her in London, and so we always do this the week before Thanksgiving. She still works, and that's the time period that works for her. So I'm meeting her in London next week, and the gal that came to tea, Lisa, who's an American but also Bermudian, I think I'm saying that right. She lives in Bermuda most of the time, and also in Paris part of the time. She is going to be in London at the same time. So it's the merging of these two worlds, you know. I'm going to introduce Lisa to Tammy, Tammy to Lisa, and just have a great time. I'll let you know how that all is. We're staying at the Marylebone Hotel because I wanted to see what that was like. Joe Good talks about it all the time, and I thought, I have to check it out because I love the Marylebone area. You will see more videos on that coming up. But do let me know if you liked the cooking aspect of this video. It's very different from anything I usually do, even though cooking is something that I absolutely love. So let me know. And thank you, everyone, for joining me. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And always come over and join us over on Substack. On Substack, I do all kinds of more of kind of free writing, if that makes any sense. Thoughts about what's going on out there in the world, and books I'm reading, and ideas that I have, and then people start chiming in, which is great because this truly is a club. It is I call it your Fab Next Chapter Club. So join us over there. And join us here on YouTube if you haven't already. Take care, everyone. I shall see you soon. This time, it really is goodbye. A biento.